Hut Hut Hike.
That's a sport reference.
It was. I was so happy that you got the Deflategate reference.
I did. I was excited about it too, obviously.
I could tell.
Yeah.
I could tell. All right, we're back. Hi, everybody. I'm sure folks will be joining us here
there we go.
Momentarily. Yeah, people are getting notifications now because we start to fill up, pretty quickly once we're
right.
Yeah.
And you're back. Thanks, Street. I love you guys.
New stream.
Oh man, I'm really glad that I decided to stand up for this one. Even like that reclined, like probably 80% reclined with ice on my back. By the end of that 25-minute stint, my back was already like, "What are you doing?"
Yikes.
Anyways, so yeah, in the previous episode, I was basically, jumping on this interesting bandwagon that maybe trying to convince people of anything is dumb. And by that, I think, especially as it pertains to stuff that requires a basic understanding of science or trust of scientists, right? Because you don't have to understand how the science works if you trust,
that science actually works, right?
If you trust the scientist, right? And that's apparently, like, Bill Nye the Science Guy didn't work hard enough when we were all kids.
Right.
If that was around when you were a kid. And again, my only suggestion is that if what you're doing isn't actually working, then maybe try again. Like, sure, but pause and stop and think. What if there's a way that would work 100 times better for all we know? We don't know, right? And right now, the idea that we're going to convince anyone in the pandemic is a fucking hoax crowd that climate change is going to be an existential threat. I mean, the chances are zero. Like, it's, and I love the idealism. I really do. But at some point, if you keep beating your head against the brick wall for idealism's sake, at the cost of lives, when you're a hyper intelligent monkey that might have figured out a smarter way, it's kind of on you if you don't change.
Okay, here's another approach. And I think this is going to square more with what Fred is thinking. And I see this related to other things, and I think it's maybe relevant. When I'm having an argument with somebody about climate change on the internet, I'm not necessarily working to convince them. Maybe what's happening is I'm speaking to the audience that's sort of neutral, and there's a lot more people in that camp than the arch camp.
I used to think that too. I don't think those people exist. Right? Again, or let me rephrase that. I used to see a little bit of evidence that those people existed. I would get like the odd bit of feedback, like, "Hey, I saw your long-winded argument with this person and you totally convinced me." I haven't seen that since the first Obama term. And so,
if there's
no evidence of it, we don't, if our provable success rate is 0, then if we're imagining a cohort that is magically being convinced while we're not looking, then that's not enough for me. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying, like, that we shouldn't hang our hopes on that necessarily.
On the internet, like if you put on the internet after everything you just said, trying to convince people on the internet.
Okay, all right.
How many of these conversations have you? How many of these conversations have you had with a room full of people in meat space?
I concede fully that might be different.
I suspect it would be greatly different. Because like we're being algorithmed into a viewing audience or a listening audience. Like the people that we're communicating with are sort of algorithmically directed on social media.
Yes,
it's not an open space where we hear everybody's point of view. Like because of the people I've defriended, unfriended, unfollowed. There's a lot of folks that aren't hearing what I have to say, and I assume that some of them are doing the same kind of thing, sort of siloing themselves to keep from having to have this ridiculous argument every day. I don't know. Maybe social media is part of our problem.
Well, it is, but it might actually end up. I mean, we might be able to jujitsu it into part of the solution,
right?
Maybe.
Well, I mean, here's my real world example. I used my social media platform and my viewing audience and my listening audience to generate 2 local events where local politicians got to speak directly to voters and voters got to interact directly with candidates. And we increased voter turnout in my county. We didn't do it on social media. We used social media to leverage people to go to the event twice, right? And we got politicians, candidates for office to participate by using social media and email to get them to the event. But what actually happened was direct contact. There's a lot of people that volunteer now in the Democratic Party that their first thing they ever volunteered for was to come out and register voters or talk up candidates at VoteFest. So I know locally, getting people to show up in person makes a difference. You were at the very first thing I ever did like that. Well, the very first 2 things I ever did like that. Number 1 was the Marine Science Boat Day for Grown-Ups with Beer, right? Where we
still maybe the best title of any event ever.
It was perfect. And then VoteFest, or not VoteFest, but the night that I put a call to action out for people to come meet me at Gildog and hear from the director of the Homeless Coalition, right? And 40 people showed up and they listened with incredible seriousness. And almost all of those people ended up volunteering in some way to find a way to help homeless people, either directly or through donations or through motivating other people to change their minds.
Greg,
yeah,
you're proving my point.
Well, no,
here's why.
It's a caveat to your point.
Here's why.
I think you're prefacing all this with your experience on the internet.
No. So the net result of what you did is you invited a bunch of people who agree with you that democracy is good. Who agree with you that homelessness is a problem, right? And They came together to learn more and work on the problem.
Right.
You convinced no one that science was a good idea. You convinced absolutely no one that climate science was real, and that decades of people hammering on elitist scientists on Fox News
wasn't real. I'm talking about a method. I'm talking about a method, not an issue. Because
I love that method because that method is how we actually do it.
Right.
Right. And if we want to communicate to the other side in any way, we should really only try, amplifying the messages that they're actually going to hear. You can buy, 5 years from now, you can get a Tesla for $5,000, whatever the fuck it is, right? Obviously, that's not true, but you get the idea. Or 20% cheaper than a gas car or whatever the fuck it is. We can if we communicate to them at all, we don't bother trying to push the rock up the hill, and we basically just offer them something that they actually want and can understand, while getting a group of 40 people together to talk city planning and just work around them, right? That's really the only thing. One of those things is going to be 1,000 times easier than the other. Then what happened?
I was just looking at comments. There's a hell of a raging discussion going on about nationalism and media solidity. So, yeah. Awesome. I'll let people have that conversation. Dave Myers, you're never going to convince anyone of anything on social media. It's too easy for people to dig their heels in with bad ideas. In person is the only way that real change can happen. Yeah, and I wish I had the energy for that today. I just don't right this minute.
Yeah.
By the way, I watched the Have a Good Trip documentary on Netflix, and I found it really affirming of my decisions with psychedelics over the decades. I found it it notched a lot of the whole don't look into a mirror thing, and it was, of all people, Cordray. What's his name? Rob Corddry, the guy that used to be on the Daily Show. He's the one that said, no, look in the mirror. Maybe that's what you actually need to see. Get uncomfortable. Yes. Maybe you need to have your ego destroyed to make positive changes in your life. I was like, yes, see the uncomfortable shit. Allow yourself to see it. That's when real change happens. So maybe I love that documentary.
It was one of the things they so I brought Sam Harris and this whole thing up because it was sort of a shocking realization for me, because I can't see any evidence that he's wrong about that, which is fairly shocking. But that whole episode with Tim Ferriss is about psychedelics, and they talk a lot about how so I guess Tim Ferriss is I think it's called Zendo. There's a harm reduction volunteer service that goes to things like Burning Man and shit like that,
right?
Which I think is just fantastic, in and of itself. So he actually volunteered for them and was helping with that, and was talking about how especially with LSD, there's like a small subset of people that can have like a really, really long trip, and it becomes just full of shame spiral and all sorts of crazy negative shit. And so that got them into a conversation about how, with some of these substances, or even all of them, it even happen on mushrooms. Like if you take a little bit, or like a medium dose, 3 grams of mushrooms, say, or whatever the equivalent is in LSD, you can really go into that self-referential thing. And they talk about, you can actually, come to some good realizations that way. But I think like you almost have to be ready for that. You have to be the type of person that wants to do that exploration. Because if you're sort of stuck in a monkey mind spiral, all that's going to do is like light the monkey mind spiral on fire. Right. But what they said was, and I guess Sam Harris just did this recently, went in and did a 5-gram dose, which is like Terrence McKenna, sort of heroic dose level is how they describe it. But he did it the way you're supposed to do it, right? Like blindfolded in the dark. Like it's not like a party situation. It's like a ritual situation.
I think that's one of the most important keys.
I think it's critical.
There's probably 20 people, maybe more, around that did their first ever experience with LSD or mushrooms with me. And I learned like spontaneously without some elder, probably by the time I was 19, that it was not a party drug, that this is not a thing to, take a load of mushrooms and go to a concert. Although I could see why somebody would do that. Like having your first experience with it, your first heavy experience with it, with people you trust in an environment that's safe, allows you to unlock the positive value of it. It's fun no matter what. It's fun to giggle with your friends and and have a good time, but important shit can happen if you frame it correctly. And I, like several of the people in the documentary, talked about sitting down with intention, like before you drink the tea or put that tab on your tongue, to sit down and think about what it is you want and need, and allowing yourself to go out and fully explore that's pretty fucking brave. And I found that documentary really affirming of a lot of things that I hold true about those particular drugs. And keep in mind, I'm a person that's been sober for a long, long time now, in many other ways. So there's a little bit of an asterisk next to my sobriety, but I unlocked some important stuff concurrent with my reintroduction to mushrooms in the 2005 to 2012, let's say. Something I really needed to process that I wasn't processing until I let myself put both feet in the boat, and really go far from shore. And just to finish my thought on that before I lose it, the whole point, the arc that they were bringing up is that the reason, like, basically more might actually be better than less, right. And that's because if you do that and you do it properly, you do it in the right setting, you do it with the right framing. Tim Ferriss actually said he uses an airplane analogy all the time, right? Like you need enough to get liftoff, but after liftoff, it's kind of turbulent a little bit. And then if you just get into the clouds, it could be really, really turbulent. If you take enough, you get through the clouds, it's smooth sailing. And Sam Harris even brings it to like that. Like it's you can sort of be in that range where it's self-referential. You still have like your ego is intact, yada yada yada. You get to the point, at a decent enough dose, and you experience things that are substantially different. That's where the Sam Harris was linking it to the always thinking that meditation experts saying they're tapping into this well of deep love and understanding or whatever. I sort of presumed that was true, but didn't really know. But when you get into some of these higher, like really higher states with psychedelics, it's proof positive that those exist. And then that actually informed his meditation practice, because now he knows what he's shooting for. That's like there is this interesting deeper set that is available, and you can actually strap a rocket to your ass and experience it, so that you actually know it's a thing that exists. Before there was a moment before it was sort of what I want to say, publicly popular to admit that you did psychedelics again. Now we're in a moment where lots of guys talk about it on their podcasts, on broadcast, but that wasn't happening 10 years ago. That really wasn't happening 10 to 15 years ago. And I used to think about how to frame my understanding of how the experience affected me. And one of the, I think my favorite way to explain it is, if you're sitting in a really loud restaurant, it's crowded and packed with people, You're hearing sound from all of those people, all the dishes clattering, all the people talking, all the other conversations. But somebody sitting 3 feet away from you, you can have a conversation with just them, and you filter out a lot of what's going on around you. Your mind has a built-in set of filters, auditory filters, that sort of put you in a little bubble with the person you're conversing with. Some of that is visual cues. Some of that is probably partially lip reading and gestures and body posture, but you're able to interpret what that person is saying despite all the noise around you. And it seems to me that what the psychedelic experience did for me is I'm aware the whole thing about not looking in the mirror, being in a safe space. Like if my house is a total disaster and I trip, I'm avoiding a lot of stuff around me that's pretty messy, because I don't want to deal with it. So I filter it out. My mind has filters for those kinds of things, unpleasant things, or things that are less than optimal for me. I have to filter them out to process, to do what I have to do to stay fed and rested and get through my day. And I think what mushrooms and other psychedelics do for me and have done for me is they've allowed me to lower those filters and see things maybe in a more real way than I see them in my day-to-day life. And all that, you would think that the opposite would be true, that it's a way to escape the reality around you. I actually think it's a way to engage with the reality around you. And the more experienced you are at it, the more you're able to see those things that are less than optimal and understand them without letting them attack you. Do you know what I mean by that? Like you're able to see them and go, yeah, it's not optimal. It's not great, but I'm alive. I'm functioning. I'm eating. I'm sleeping. Right. So you can I find it easier to take stock. I don't like seeing those things when I'm in the moment, but when I come back from that moment, I find that I'm able to still be okay despite the less than optimal things that are happening around me.
Well, then well, and I mean that's
filters. I think it's a filter lowering device.
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing. Like it's basically taking your higher order functions that all run on automatic and turning them all off. Right. So right. And those, I think primarily the vast majority of that is going to be the way that we chunk information in those filters.
Right.
I think that's a very useful way to look at it.
Yeah. The don't look in a mirror thing is, I think that's why it's so shocking when people do that, is because they have a vision in their head of what they look like. The same way, anytime we record somebody, they always tell us I hate the way I sound. That's because you sound differently in your own head. Mechanically, you sound different because of the physics of your head than you do to the outside world. And so seeing yourself in the mirror as you really are, as others might see you, can be kind of uncomfortable. I can totally understand why people would not want to. But I think Cordray is right. No, look in the mirror. You really need to do that. Yeah. So...
But anyway. Buckle up first.
Yeah. Do it with somebody that knows what they're doing. Don't. Yeah. I just wanted to say I watched that documentary then and I found it really affirming and positive. I feel bad for Ben Stiller. I wish he'd have done a better job his first time out.
Yeah, seriously. Way to drop the ball, buddy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. All of his friends now are like, "Oh, Ben, you have to do it again. We'll do it right this time."
That was what happened to Ben McCart too, right?
Oh yeah, I love Ben. I know the Ben story. I didn't hear that story from Ben. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I heard it from one of Anita's kids that grew up with him.
Yeah,
that he had a bad time and ended up
a really bad time
on himself.
Yeah, exactly. So bad. That's the thing. Like, and thankfully he lives in California now. Like he lives on cannabis as a rule. But we played together for like 10 years. He tried to get me to smoke with him, like, for the first year, like almost all the time, and until he realized what Greg does is like, no, Corey's IQ literally drops through the floor, and he becomes kind of useless.
I don't want it to be true.
It just is like people have their good drugs and their bad drugs, and that's not one of my good drugs. But on the same token, I kept trying to get her to do mushrooms with me. And it's not like I don't like, fun stuff. It's just that, I have different fun stuff. And he finally told me this story where, he took some and thought he was dying and like trying to climb a cupboard and called 911 on himself.
Yeah, he collapsed in an entertainment center on himself and called 911. And when the cops got there, they knocked on the door and woke his dad up. So that must have been really, really fun.
Dude.
Yeah. And I know the people that were with him when he took them. It's like, that's how I know this story is. Yeah, somebody who was with him earlier in the evening that day. So that's cool. So
again, set and setting. That's a
yeah. Did you see this this story about the head of NASA's human spaceflight program stepping down?
Yeah. So he wasn't even there for a year. Hey.
Right.
And again, still weird. But they pushed the guy who'd been there for I think 15 years out already. And then they brought that guy in. So like, I think there's no way around the fact that this is super weird. Cause yeah, it's like days away from when they're supposed to be doing their first United States launch, right? Like,
yeah.
What's that about?
Okay. So what he says, I truly look forward to living the next 4+ years with you as we returned Americans to the surface of the moon and prepared for the long journey beyond, but it is not to be. In the message, he said he took a risk earlier in the year because he judged it necessary to fulfill the mission. I want to be clear that the fact that I am taking this step has nothing to do with your performance as an organization or with the plans we've placed in motion to fulfill our mission. My leaving is because of my personal actions, not anything we have accomplished together. And I'm not having any luck making sense of that. Like, did he?
It sounds like
own stock in one of the contractors and didn't disclose it.
Well, if he took a risk, did he maybe push through something for SpaceX or Boeing or right? That sounds like I cut corners and got caught.
Yeah, it does, and that's really disappointing. Really disappointing. But and the timing's bad. The good news is that Ken Bowersox, the guy that's going to replace him, is an astronaut, right? And I think that's having an astronaut in the office of human spaceflight is probably not a bad idea,
right? Like
nobody understands the day-to-day risk better than those guys.
Exactly. And like I've had a bomb strapped to my ass, so I know all the things you want to know to make sure that the bombs explode in the direction you want them to.
The right way. Yeah. Ginny, has an administration ever had so much turnover of top officials? Nope, they have not. This is the worst it's ever been. And unfilled positions and people who are not vetted having jobs. It's very much like the Nazi regime in the 30s. I keep saying that. It was basically a giant grifting criminal enterprise that attained control of a government. I see a lot of similarity there.
That sounds familiar. Yeah, Fred's still worried about how he looked on our video. Like, I don't want to rob you of that, but I don't think anyone shares your worry.
What's the worry? What's the worry?
He doesn't like how he looks on camera.
Who's that?
Fred, or probably almost anyone.
Yeah, no one does. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to do live video. Corey convinced me over a period of months of yelling at me. There was no yelling, but he was not wrong.
I'm pretty loud, kind of as a static thing. So Yep. There was a weasel. It chewed through a wire at the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. And pivoted us into this timeline where we have an actual con man as president. And the 4 countries that are doing the worst in this pandemic are all run by nationalist pieces of garbage that are trying to be Trump when they are not in fact Trump. Putin, Bolsonaro, Boris, the United States with Trump, 4 worst countries for the pandemic right now. Shocking literally no one.
Yeah. Oh, Jareen, I played a show once where the whole band was on acid except me, and I didn't know anyone else was tripping until after the show. I was kind of mad that no one offered me any, but it's a good thing they didn't. I didn't have any chance because I didn't know that I was pregnant yet. Good point. How is Elton John intolerable? You people are just wrong about that.
I don't know that I can handle Elton John on acid, though.
I'll tell you what, if you want to see an amazing musical performance by people on acid, the clip of Santana, Carlos Santana's band at Woodstock. Apparently they were told they had like a full day before they were to go on, and then somebody couldn't get there, so they all dropped acid, and then somebody came up and said, "Hey, you guys are on in an hour." And so when you watch the video, you can see it. You can see the blotchiness and how fucking crazy they are, and it's one of the greatest musical performances of all time, and they were all just tripping balls. And I just love
I'm telling you, man, especially when you're like Dan Ellison and I, every so often allegedly would jam that way, and it was like being like, or we would react to each other as a jam band pretty quickly regardless, but it was like being psychic. Like it was like legitimately like I knew exactly where Dan was gonna go before he went there, and vice versa, and we got it. It's fucking crazy shit. And I wish we had Yeti mics back then, because I would have recorded every second of it.
Yeah, if you go back into the archives You will probably find some podcasts. No, I don't really want to directly say that out loud, but you would have a hard time telling if Corey and I were tripping on mushrooms or not if you were to listen to us do a show that way.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, well, especially because like the 10 or 15 people that are here, they might be able to tell because you guys watch us every day.
Yeah,
but it would be interesting.
It was some of our best work, though. I haven't gone back and listened to them. They're pretty good.
Totally true.
So, yeah.
Dave said, fun theory I heard, our robot overlords are making the simulation so intolerable that when we wake up and find out we're being used as batteries, we won't be upset because it's better than this.
Oh, my God. It's the
There
Matrix.
are now 2 conspiracy theories that I am officially backing, and that is one.
I like it. Although, I'll tell you that the other LHC, well, the other something wrong with our timeline theory that I like is the one that David Bowie was the only thing holding our timeline together in a rational way. And most of what's gone wrong has coincided with losing David Bowie. So, yeah. Okay, so to recap, mushrooms good, nationalism bad.
Show over.
Everything is hopeless.
No, again, at no point did I say hopeless. I just
sound pretty hopeless, buddy.
No. There is a very good argument backed up by checks, notes, all of the evidence that what we're doing is not going to work at all, and we should probably rethink what we're doing.
Well, let me know when you figure it out.
I did.
Yeah.
You figured it out. You told us exactly what to do. Get 40 people who agree with you in a room to do work.
That's a pretty good set of rules, Ginny, now that I'm looking at it. Ginny Rupert's drug rules. Nothing in the arms, nothing in the eyes, nothing up the nose, nothing under the tongue, nothing in the bum. Yeah, maybe so.
I mean, that under the tongue thing, though. I mean,
I know what you're thinking.
Dave. Stoicism and idealism. Those are definitely a good mix. Yep. I'm glad that I still have people like you and Fred around who are maintaining their idealism.
Right.
Because I think the only way is going to be figuring out what actually will work and then applying our excessive idealism to it. Yep. I just at every point, I think we should be willing to stop and say, is what we're doing working? And if not, we should put the shovel down.
Right. The people that's funny thinking about it, the people that I have seen and known in my life that have a good mixture of stoicism and idealism, monks, whether we're talking about Franciscan monks or Buddhist monks, observing all around you and being at peace with it and still yet trying to make it better. That's a pretty good practice.
Indeed.
Not letting it destroy you, even though other people are being destroyed. And that can seem callous, but sometimes it's the only way to remain positively moving. Like if you happen on the scene of an airplane crash and you're so overwhelmed by all the bad stuff you're seeing that you can't help anybody, that's not a good state, right? You need to detach yourself from it to an extent so you can help the people that are still alive. Maybe that's what we're looking for.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, some of that, I think for sure. Yep.
All right. Ready to wrap this up?
Yeah.
I'm going to go cook some pork chops.
All right.
Because I got them. So
that's what we're going to do. That checks out.
All right. All right. We love you guys very much. Thanks for joining us. We're back on Friday, 10 o'clock for #coffee. And by the way, next Wednesday, I think 4:30 is the scheduled time for the return to human spaceflight from the Cape. I think we should try and live stream that.
Yep.
Pull up a screen where we can show it, and let's do it. We'll probably do that direct on Facebook, so we don't get in trouble with YouTube.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. I think that's true.
That'll happen around 4:30 in the afternoon. We'd love to share that with you guys. It's going to be exciting, and I'm sure Bubbleviz will stay up late and join us for that since it'll be, he's excited about the spaceflight thing as well. And we'd love for all of you to be there, but we'll probably do a regular show that day in the morning and then come back 4:30 in the afternoon, 4:15 or so, and do a live stream of the launch. That's the plan. Yep. Coffee happens on Sunday here on our YouTube channel, and you can join us in our Minecraft server. Yes,
for church. Yeah. On Friday, I think we're gonna have the founder of Infinity Block, who is the head of one of the block producers for Telos.
nice.
On the Telos blockchain is like EOS, only slightly different, because it actually works. Anyway, so he's going to be coming on to chat about that stuff.
Oh, and probably Ash Gallagher Monday. We talked to Ash this morning.
Oh, good.
I'm probably going to have her on Monday.
No ace.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys. We love you very much. Have a great day. Don't work too hard. And Sasquatch is real.